Which is exactly what they did with him. Like, they made him look like him. They even show him singing at the end of the movie during the credits. And you have to double take for a second and be like, oh, right, that's not the guy playing. Oh, that's actually, okay. What's up, you guys? Welcome to Boss Level 8, where we make fun of movie critics. We watched Bohemian Rhapsody. Right now, critics not liking it so much, but the audiences love it, like crazy love it. So we're gonna take a look at one of the critics' reviews that didn't like it, and then just make fun of it. We're just assuming it's bad. We haven't even seen the review yet, but it's bad. So let's read it for the first time together, but before we do, if it's your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell right next to it. Now let's get on to this review. Anyone who's read Mercury's Wikipedia page probably could have done about as good a job writing this story. Do they give all the information about the band, or just him? Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the band itself as well, and not just Freddie Mercury. I guess if it's a biopic just about Freddie Mercury, maybe, but it wasn't called that, it was called Queen. I know he's a major portion of it, but still. Also, I count Wikipedia as a trusted source always. And also, oddly enough, whoever wrote Churchill, Ali, Malcolm X, and a myriad of other biopics could have done the same thing with Wikipedia, because it was a biopic. We all got the same info. It's just a matter of who gets the money to put it on paper and make it a thing. These guys did. That's why they made a movie. The script by Anthony McCarten is a lazy melange of tropes and platitudes, and it's not a surprise that his previous scripts include other rote biopics like The Theory of Everything and Darkest Hour. I mean, the whole biopic trope is the rise and the fall and then the rise again. Like, that's kind of, it's not a bad trope. It's like, anytime you look at the lists of like really inspirational movies, that's what they do. In fact, most things do that in writing. It's kind of weird to get upset about a story arc, especially when it's based on reality. I guess you could get mad if he wrote something like completely fiction, but it's actually based on stuff that did happen. It's not like he wrote Freddie Mercury gets space AIDS and then has to attack the Martians to get the cure. And honestly, you don't even have to go that weird to make it fiction. It's not like Freddie Mercury didn't get AIDS, or when he got AIDS, they found a cure and he was okay. Even that's enough fiction to make this not what actually happened. It's the sort of movie that goes out of its way to cast Mike Myers in a bit role as an EMI record executive, purely to make the expected Wayne's World joke and think it being ceaselessly clever. Well, first of all, I think that guy actually existed and they just casted him. And if they casted him for that joke, that's fine. I'm sure a lot of people who like Wayne's World and Queen enjoyed that joke. This guy. I did. It's not like in the middle of them telling the story of the band Queen, Mike Myers jumped out and went, "Extreme close-up! Whoa!" That's about the apex of this bland and sanitized look at Queen. One that boasts Brian May and Roger Taylor as producers and is all the worse for it. Not really. I mean, I heard that initially that they wanted to make it all about mostly not Freddie Mercury. Yeah, it was my understanding that initially they wanted to make half the movie about up until when Freddie Mercury passes, and then what happens to the band afterwards, and it was like, yeah, not so much the story people want. Mercury seems like the only band member capable of doing anything wrong, and that dynamic, coupled with the knowledge that May and Taylor had heavy creative control, hangs over the proceedings. Any hope for something surprising or attempts at emotion, whether it's Freddie's reveal of his AIDS diagnosis or the rest of the band's anger at his growing ego and drug abuse, feels so staged and dead on screen that it would be impossible to glean any excitement or empathy from it. Everything on the screen smacks of cynical calculation. Whoa. Really? Cynicism? No emotion? I don't know. I was definitely in a theater full of people who seemed affected emotionally by that. People have to stop going into movies like already dead inside. I can't wait for the moment when we find out that you don't like Queen in this review. It's gonna happen. I feel like at some point you're gonna be like, well, I'm not really a fan of Queen, and I had absolutely no interest in seeing this. But other than that, my opinion's valid. I'm waiting for it. If it doesn't happen, it'll be a breath of fresh air, but I feel like it's gonna happen. Malek, for his part, does what he can, but the deck is stacked against him. He labors under a protruding prosthetic overbite, the result of Mercury having 4 extra teeth in his mouth, and an accurate but terrible looking wig for the majority of the first 2/3 of the film, making him look like Freddie Mercury through a Saturday Night Live lens. Have you seen Freddie Mercury? That's what he looked like. That's exactly what he looked. He didn't look like me. And he sure as hell didn't look like you. He looked like him, which is exactly what they did with him. Like, they made him look like him. It's not like they did a caricature of him at all. Like, go look at a picture. They even show him singing at the end of the movie during the credits. And you have to double take for a second and be like, oh, right, that's not the guy playing. Oh, that's actually okay. Malek is better than that, but he doesn't really come into his own until he ditches the wig, looking far more natural with Freddie Mercury's close-cropped 80s look. Still, his lip syncing is blatantly noticeable, shattering the film's suspension of disbelief. Was it? I thought he did a pretty good job of lip syncing. It seemed like he was singing. You're treating this movie like it's the bad lip reading of this movie, and it's not. He did a pretty good job. In fact, the musicians look like they're playing through the entire movie, which is a joy, because that never happens in movies. Unless they actually are playing, which does occasionally occur. But that was just wonderful to have happen. I think you were looking for fault in it, and then somehow found it, even though it really wasn't there. He looks like he's singing. Even during the climactic Live Aid concert, Singer zooms his camera over a computer-generated crowd. It's all artifice. Singer wants Bohemian Rhapsody to be a cutting, trenchant look at this larger-than-life figure and the pain and tragedy hiding behind it. So basically, every biopic ever made about a famous person. Yeah, of course. Because famous people generally have tragedy in their lives because they get fame. They become incredibly famous and then they resort to sex and drugs and alcohol and depression, and sometimes it's suicide or this thing or that. There's a lot of stuff that happens that makes it for a story, and that's why we want the story. It's very rare that we're like, hey, I can't wait to see that biopic of that person who had nothing happen. Just like Karen from HR, or just like, let's be honest, like, a biopic of Justin Timberlake is only interesting if we see the heartache of him and Britney Spears. Otherwise, it's just kind of happy. Who the fuck wants that? But in practice, it's all surface. There's nothing going on underneath. I love when you decide what's going on underneath. It's a fun thing. In the end, the complete disappointment of Bohemian Rhapsody becomes the perfect distillation of a question that plagues any biopic covering a subject who lived in the age of cameras. Why watch this when you can watch the real thing? Awesome. I don't know. I'm assuming you don't read books anymore based on that logic. I don't know. Why do we watch the Food Network and not eat it? I mean, people enjoy watching people play video games and not playing the video game. There's a lot of things. Porn, yeah. I mean, you can do it to porn, but you're not. Why spend 15 minutes recreating the Live Aid set when anyone can watch it on YouTube whenever they want? Because it needs to be in the movie. If it isn't in the movie, then the culminating, like, epic moment that happened to Freddie Mercury and Queen isn't there. And what do you want it to end with? Considering this, all the pressure is put on the interstitial moments, Mercury's life behind the music. And that's where Bohemian Rhapsody fails spectacularly. So it fails at everything and then also fails in this. That's really funny. Alright. There's nothing interesting or exciting about this portrayal of Freddie Mercury. He's a bystander in his own life, flitting from moment to moment until the movie dials up another Queen performance. I mean, isn't that kind of the point of this? That he didn't know who to be until the Queen performances? I don't know. Maybe you could have caught that when he blatantly said it to a guy on a couch. It happens in the movie. He says, these are the moments where I don't know who to be or what to do. Those are the moments where I do. So that's pretty on par with what's going on there for the old Mercury. We don't see how he developed his singing voice or his stage presence. Yeah, because practicing is boring. You want to watch practicing? The only time it's not boring is if it's the Jackson 5 or the Temptations. Those were good movies. He just springs out full-formed. We barely get a sense of his sexuality beyond some timid, perfunctory montages. I mean, you want to show him doing it? Like, we only have so much time. If we show all the practicing in a half an hour, now it's a half hour longer. If we show him having sex with everybody, or like, when he starts figuring stuff out so blatant, like, there's only so much time in this movie. A little bit was like implied, yes. And I think that that's fine. We can go, oh, he's starting to understand himself a little bit more. And not like, oh, he's clearly doing that. Like, we don't need that. It turns out that Queen was a pretty good band. You think? They made a whole fucking movie about it. But you can get all of that by listening to a greatest hits record or searching their live performances on their internet without slogging through the saccharine script and lack of personality that bogs it all down. So anything that has any kind of evidence you don't want a film made about it, that's pretty limiting. So basically anything that's made before cameras is fine, but after cameras, hell no. So if you want to make a movie on Watergate, nope, sorry. If you want to make a movie about war, well, you better make sure it's a war where we didn't have cameras. Sorry. In fact, we're gonna take back all the Oscars of all the frickin' movies that won Best Picture that were based on things that happened while there were cameras because of this guy. Sounds great. Queen deserves better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Freddie Mercury deserves better than Bohemian Rhapsody. We deserve better than Bohemian Rhapsody. And what better way to make a better film than to not make a film and just go look at the footage of concerts and listen to the records, I guess. I guess that's a better movie. Make us going and watching the things that we've already seen instead of finding out the story that we wanted to have told. That makes sense. What do you guys think? Do you think it makes no sense to make a movie like this and show concert footage that's been recreated to help tell the story just because we have cameras and have the actual footage? Because at that point, if we're just using the footage, isn't it just a documentary? We'd love to hear what you think, what you thought of this movie. Put it down in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this critics review. If it's your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell right next to it. Click one of the videos on the screen to see another one from us. And until we see you next time, geek out and game on.